Brought to you by Prescient Investment Management. Informed by science. Guided by insight. Prescient Investment Management is an authorized FSP.
Welcome to Honest Money. We're talking all things investing, saving, and success. And it's a bit of a topic today because we're trying to understand when you start this journey and you start saving and you start investing and you pay down your debt and you do all the things you're supposed to do. When do you start feeling like things are going well? When do you start feeling like you're achieving a measure of success? And so to help me with the topic today, I brought in Steve Van Rooyen. He's the co-founder of Digi Dorx and our partner in Honest Money. Steve, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Warren. It's great to be on the show.
So our discussion that leads to this podcast is, you're doing what you're supposed to, right? You're following all the steps to financial freedom, making sure that you've got your emergency fund, that you stay out of debt, that you save every month, that you build up your long-term investments. But it's not always like a fulfilling or satisfying experience, right? You look at your account and you go, okay, my account is a bit more bigger than it was last month, and it's bigger than the month before that, and wow, that's great. But you're building up money for Steve in 20 years' time. You're not building up money for Steve tomorrow that can go and buy a new car or a new bicycle or training shoes or whatever it is. So it's not always fulfilling or satisfying.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with that, Warren. I think I'm at the stage of my life, so just over 30, and I think the unfortunate thing with us as human beings is we'll always compare ourselves, right? So we're going to compare ourselves to our schoolmates, we're going to compare ourselves to our varsity mates, and we're obviously all at stages now in our careers where varsity mates are now starting to become managers, or like myself, starting to open their own business, right? So you then, in inverted commas, start seeing some sort of success. And then you start going out for a drink with a mate or whatever, and then he's arriving in a brand new car. He's arriving, you go to his house and you start seeing, oh, his house is much bigger than yours. He owns a house. I only rent a house. So all these thoughts start crossing your mind, and then you start using this barometer of success, right? And you start saying to yourself, well, is he successful? Am I not successful? You obviously don't, and it's maybe the culture that we live in. We don't all chat about our investments and the size of our investments and how important they are. But one thing I found that is maybe helping me a little bit is just to kind of, I have a little bit of a Google sheet. My wife's also an Excel queen. So we have a Google sheet that shows us where our investments are currently standing, because obviously they're all in different places. So it kind of brings it together. So you have some sort of statement, and we obviously only pull that once a month. And then on that day, when you do that, it kind of makes you feel good. But then you have other 30 days of the month when you're driving past car dealerships or the new complex up the road that's now selling houses. So then you kind of feel like, oh, well, am I actually that successful? Am I working so hard for the future Steve, which might not even be around? So it is quite difficult to try and weigh up this thing of living in the now and making sure that my retirement is good enough.
Yeah, and I think you're touching on a few big topics there, because the one is about delayed gratification. So it's about being able to create a vision for life today that you're happy to live the life that you're living today, but also creating a vision of what your future life should look like, and making it so compelling that whatever you're trading off today, whatever you're not buying today, you're happy to walk away from, because you know that this thing that you're working towards is compelling and exciting and inspiring for you. And I think it's important to understand ourselves as human beings. We're not wired in any way to be excited about the future. We're not actually that motivated by being debt free and financially free and being able to buy what you want to buy in 20 years time. That's so far away. It's almost another lifetime, and therefore it's another human being. It's Steve 20 years from now is just a totally different person to you, almost a stranger. It's as emotionally valuable to you as a character in a movie or a character in a book. It's almost a fiction, and so we are wired as human beings, all of us, to kind of look out for threat and opportunity right now. When we were kind of evolving, we would be walking in the savannah and we'd be looking at food or predator and trying to make sure that we navigate a life that way. And that hardwiring that's built into us doesn't evolve. I mean, the fact that we drive cars and fly airplanes and all that stuff today, we're actually in wiring way no different to what we were 50,000 years ago. We exactly the same. Maybe less hairy, I think, is probably the only evolution. Maybe we're a bit taller. But the wiring of our brains and the reward kind of chemicals that we have are identical. So I think understanding two things. One, that you need to give yourself immediate short-term reward. So there needs to be kind of the short-term to say, if I save 10% of my salary or 15% of my salary for the future, Steve, once I've done that, I'm allowed to spend 5% of my salary on current Steve. I'm allowed to go out and actually go and buy whatever it is that I want to buy, and it's guilt-free because I've hit my savings target. And now this extra money that I've got here is for me for now. It's my reward for doing the job I'm supposed to do as the long-term investor and saver. And I think a lot of people get stuck in that balance of saying, no, I'm not going to worry about that. I've got to live today. I might, as you said, you might die tomorrow, or you never know. We never know what the future holds. But I don't think it's an either or. I don't think it's saying only live for today or only live for the future. I think it's about a balance of getting that reward system going for yourself. And I mean, it's, we need to know ourselves. We're fairly basic things, human beings, and we like rewards and we don't like punishment. And so in this instance, like, reward yourself for the now, for doing the savings goal. And then it's guilt-free. If you've done the savings, you've done your job, then there should be money that's allocated for fun or whatever it is that you want to spend. And I think that balance thing is really important. I think a lot of people get that wrong. So what happens is it's like going on a crash diet. You kind of go on the diet, you're incredibly disciplined for 3 weeks. You lose 10 kilograms, you feel amazing, but you're having no fun and you're not enjoying your life at all. You're just kind of getting somewhere, and 3 weeks later, guess what? The crash diet fails because you go back to chocolate and beer and whatever else and all the things that you shouldn't do because there was no balance. There was no, so I mean, money and food, I think, are very similar in terms of saying, well, eat well, eat balanced diet, do what you're supposed to do, and then give yourself Friday or Saturday off to do what you feel like. And then get back on the wagon the next day and carry on. And then you've always got something to look forward to that's very short-term, very immediate, that you can see. A week is not a long time to kind of work towards a goal, whereas 20 years is ridiculous. I mean, we can't, we're not designed to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I think I have to agree with you, because I had a certain, we called it like our investment goal by the age of 30. And I set that, and I did. I achieved it probably at the age of 28, 29. And then when it started happening, then it's almost like, I don't want to say I slid back a bit, but I did lose that vision, because it's like, oh, I don't actually have a goal that I'm working towards now, and the gratification of it, right? Because that's the struggle you get now is, just to give an example, let's just say all of a sudden you do get a certain amount of money, like in your bank account, is not your salary. So now it's excess, right? So it hasn't necessarily been budgeted for. Before, I would have straight away put that into the investment because I had a goal. Where now it's like, before the money even hits my account, I'm like, what happens if this and this comes in? Then I'll be able to buy this and this, or whatever, or buy that car, or put a deposit down. So I do tend to agree in that sense. I think that you do have to I need to shorten my goal, which is maybe a bit too far at the moment, and then just allow that little bit of fun money. And it's funny because I did do that in the past, and my fun money went into investments anyway because I had that goal. Because I knew then, well, let me take my fun money, invest that into shares, which is a little bit more riskier. I've got my ETFs, which are currently just ticking over, and then I took my fun money, and instead of buying rubbish, I would go and invest it in shares anyway. So I do think it's that, just aligning your goal and making sure that your goal is close enough that it feels attainable and reachable, instead of this mega target of I need millions and millions of rands to become financially free by the time I'm 45, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And I think that, if you get a windfall, so for some people, it'll be a bonus. For business owners, it might be a nice dividend or a nice year where you've had good profits or whatever. The secret there is not to allocate all of that to fun or all of it to investing long term. I think it's a case of saying, whatever the number is, I'm allowed to take 20% of it. If it's a big number, 20% of it I can just spend on myself for no kind of defined purpose or anything other than sheer enjoyment, sheer reward. And then 80% I'm going to put away for the future. If it's a small amount of money, that's a small bonus or a small dividend or whatever, you might say, let me take half for the future self and half as a reward now. So I think that, when you get the windfalls, be careful with those and do something with them. But equally, I like your approach of saying, well, let me set 3-year goals. Let me set a goal for saving that, and then once you've hit that goal, take a break. Maybe for the next month, you don't save anything. You just give yourself a reward of like, I've achieved a goal. I've done something. I'm gonna just enjoy myself now. And then you say, okay, let me set my next 3-year goal and then keep going. Because I think that kind of short-term, step-by-step approach for me always works better than some huge number. But I think also I just want to go back to one of the comments you made earlier about how we measure success and how we measure ourselves, and I think it's a trap we all fall into. When you start out in life and you're, especially I think it's young men. I don't know, like we measure ourselves by the car we can drive, the car we can afford. So if you think about that as a step, when you start out, I know for me it was that little Nissan Bakkie. That was when I was like 15 years old. All I wanted was that little Nissan Bakkie that I could put a mattress in the back and go camping. Not thinking that I'm 6'3" and would never fit into the Nissan Bakkie to drive it. But that was my measure of success, and like that for me was everything. And now I could go and buy. I mean, they're so old, but I mean, I could buy that Bakkie and I could buy it cash. But that's not my measure of success anymore. My measure of success has moved on because I've moved on. My financial position's moved on. My goals have changed. But at the same time, we look around. Our head goes up and we look at our neighbors. We look at our school friends. We look at our university friends, our colleagues, and we see the life that they're living. And I say see in inverted commas because we don't actually have a clue of the life they live. I mean, I've been doing financial planning for way more than 20 years now, and the one thing that always strikes me is the people that really have wealth. It's very, very rare that they drive very big flashy cars. That they just don't drive the big sports cars. There are a few of them, a handful that will, but the rest, the people that have done well for themselves, that have built up real capital, they're not in the space of spending that money in a way that we can see it. They might go away on fancy holidays, but it's a way. It's not something you would see unless you were on holiday with them. And the same with their properties. They'll be the people that have paid off the property and live in the paid off house, whereas their neighbor, who has a big salary and drives a flashy car, all of that's on debt. They've got the big flashy car because it's financed, and it's probably financed, at 90% of the value of the car, and the bond is probably 90% of the value of the house. So these are people with high income streams and massive levels of debt. And it strikes me always when you talk to high income earners and you kind of get a spread of them in our country and everywhere else, that big income earners are on average 3 months away from bankruptcy. In other words, if they were working, earning their big salaries and they got fired tomorrow, they've got enough cash reserves to kind of see themselves through the next 3 months, and that's it. They're not in a position where their cars are paid and their houses are paid. And I think that that basis of comparison, there's a brilliant, quite an old book now called The Millionaire Next Door, and it kind of analyzed a lot of the millionaires in America, and you realize that they're silent and powerful financially. These are people that are just not ostentatious, and that's the trick. Is when you look around, you're seeing the image that people want to portray, and they'll tell you about their successes, and they'll show you their fancy cars, and tell you about their latest holidays. They won't tell you about the millions in debt that's kind of racking up, and that's when interest rates are shooting up, their cost of living has gone through the roof, and they're stressing because they're actually not sure how they're going to get through the month. They're not going to tell you that story until it's too late. Finances and mental health issues are massively linked, and a lot of it is with these big achievers, these high achievers that are flashy and wanting to show everybody everything and how successful they are, but actually they're running month to month, paycheck to paycheck, just to keep everything going and to keep that image alive. And when you're in a position where you're looking around going, but I don't own all that stuff, and I can't do what that person's doing. The reality is, you can do a lot more than they can, but you don't have the debt, you don't have the worry and the burden. You don't have the big bond and the big car finance, because you choose to rent, you choose to save, and there is a day, and it'll come. When you look around and you go, that house that I really loved, I can buy that house cash now, but I choose not to. It'll be like my Nissan Bucky. It'll be the thing that you go, well, actually, I've moved on. There's something else I want to do with the money, or I'm enjoying having lots of capital and no burden of a property or a debt. So I think it's a trick of just be careful that when you compare.
Yeah, and I think I actually chatted to someone as well, and I think you've touched on it. And just to summarize, it's like everyone's definition of success will be a bit different. And it's actually to change your mindset away from success equals lots of money. Because you might chat to someone that actually has a really low income and really just enjoys their job, has a great family life, their mental health is good, and they'll say to you that they're successful. So it's actually about that for me, to just try and shift my mind away from that success is rich, or lots of money. Success could just be you being happy and enjoying life, and you are making ends meet, you are investing 20% of your salary, and you know what I mean, and it's building and growing in a positive way, So I think that's also just maybe another way to look at it, and stop pinning success on new cars.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to know that money is like on a slow burn. So when you're building up money in the early days, it feels like you're making no progress. It feels like it's, it incrementally goes forward, and it just doesn't feel like anything's happening. And you look at the world's wealthy investors. It's amazing to look at how their wealth, it goes like a graph. It kind of goes a long, slow, shallow slope, and then it almost looks like overnight it suddenly goes vertical, where their money just starts going really, huge. And for me, always having a look at Warren Buffett's kind of graph of his wealth is an example, because he's been an investor since he was kind of, 8 or 9 years old, but he really only became wealthy in his 40s and became a billionaire shortly thereafter, and then got to the tens of billions shortly thereafter again. So it's one of those things where at 40 he was well off, at 50 he was rich, at 60 he was close to the richest man in the world, and by 70 he could have probably paid off all of Eskom's debt 5 times over and not had a problem. It would have just been a pocket change for him. And that's the point, is it's about consistency and kind of day after day after day, letting that money keep growing and keep adding to it, but not measuring, as you say, success against that. I mean, to me, we've got to each of us understand what success means. It's going to be different for all of us. And if you said to me, kind of what's my personal definition of success for my life and my family, it will be that we get to the point of freedom where we're not having to get up and work 20-hour days because we have to pay bills. We get up and work 20-hour days because we feel like it, or we don't. Where we can choose to live in a different place because that's what we want to do, or we can go on holiday because that's what we feel like doing, and go where we want to go. That for me is key. Attaching a number to it is firstly, it's wrong, because what's going to happen is the number's going to change. Cost of living changes and investing changes. So putting a number on is always going to be a moving target. I mean, I can remember sitting with a wealthy investor saying to him, you're at 90 million rand of investments now, and you've got no debt, and you're working these ridiculous hours, 6 days a week. When will you have enough? So he said to me, when I make 100 million, and I said to him, like, how is your life going to be better than today when you're at 90 million? What else are you going to have? What more? And there wasn't more. It was just a goal. And then we got there, and he hit his 100 million. And then he said to me, no, I think it's 150. And so for him, he had attached success to a number, and the number never stood still. And so you're right. It's, attaching success to a number, I think is a goal that will never be reached.
Yeah, you're right. It's always like, I remember in school, speaking about your Bucky, mine was always, I said, by the age of 25, I'll have that 3 Series BMW and I just need R1 million. Like when I was at the age of 15, 16, that's what made sense to me. I thought R1 million was more than enough, like you can buy a decent house and all that. And actually looking back now, it was such an unrealistic goal to think, well, how are you going to go to varsity, only work for 2 years, then afford the BMW? And then obviously we all know now R1 million isn't that much anyway, but it's exactly that. Right now, when you go and if you think about what my goal would be now, it would probably be the 5 Series, So it's always one better depending on where you are in your life. And I think there's a good element to be aspirational and to drive yourself forward and all of that. But it's just when it starts becoming unhealthy and you start weighing bad decisions on that, then I think it becomes really bad, because it will affect my mental health that I don't have the 3 Series, It's like, I drive an R20, and that gets me every day, but it gets us to from point A to point B, really low on petrol, hasn't given us any hassles, and that's the thing, to actually then realize, okay, well, the R20 is maybe 10 years old. Let's start saving for the next car. When you have a good enough deposit, then you can buy a next car. And I also think the mindset shift now, because we haven't had debt, and now to put more debt on yourself, is it really worth it?
I think people that have debt and feel it as a burden, if you ask them what their definition of freedom is, it will just be to be debt free one day. And so, I think you can only appreciate the burden of debt and like the horrible weight that it puts on you when you've had it, and then you get rid of it. And I think it's a step that very few people in life actually ever get to until probably they stop work, which is get debt free. So I think it's a powerful goal, just as a motivator for me always is, I don't want to be in a position where I owe people money and can't pay it off. If I take on debt now, it's a financial decision, not a buying or spending decision. It's it's something that I choose to do, but I know I've always got the money to settle it, and that's that's a point of strength. It's making decisions from a point of choices, not because you've spent yourself into a corner and you have no more choice. And that it's such a horrible feeling, because actually you're working for the debt provider. You're working for the banks that gave you the money, and that's not a place anybody wants to be.
And the uncertainty around like interest rates going up, we obviously, when we're recording this, it's about a week away from another. Is it going up? Is it staying? Is it going down? And I think just the uncertainty of that, like even in your budget, then do you calculate for it to go up? Do you calculate it for it to go down? And the reality of it is salaries aren't going up. I've been chatting to a few mates. Their salaries aren't even increasing by inflation. But in the meantime, your interest rates on your house and your car are increasing at dramatic rates, so it just causes unnecessary stress, to be honest.
Yep, and I'm thinking about, I've been reading about people living in the UK, and they fix their mortgages every 2 to 5 years. And people that fixed their mortgages 4.5 years ago were paying an interest rate of about 0.5% a year. And
Sure.
they're now in for a shock, because that new interest rate that they're going to have to pay in 6 months' time will be around about 6 or 6.5%. So if you just think about that, you're paying your £5,000 a month mortgage, and overnight it's going to go up 10 times. So suddenly you're paying £50,000 a month to fund your mortgage, and that's a horrible place to be. And again, it's about debt. So Steve, I think we're out of time. Any last thoughts?
No, thank you so much, Warren. I think I think what I realized today is that the yardstick of success is always going to be shifting, but really just need to keep your eye on the prize, that long-term investing goal, and then maybe just a little bit more flexibility on the fund, just to keep me motivated now when I'm working hard.
Yeah, and don't take that away from yourself. When you've got the fund money and you've earned it, you should spend it, and you should do something with it as a reward. What's interesting is chemically that stays in our brain. We remember those rewards if they're short term, and it motivates us to get to the next short term reward. So if you don't reward yourself, you're not setting yourself up to kind of take advantage of the kind of wiring that we've got inside ourselves. So well done on where you've got to so far. Good luck for the next 3-year goal, and we'll check in again to see how you go.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Warren.
Brought to you by Prescient Investment Management. Informed by science, guided by insight. Prescient Investment Management is an authorized FSP.